Yeah, it was actually really interesting timing. So I jumped on learning about hypnosis really fast after reading Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss, and then finding what was considered the best hypnosis school around, which Jerry Kine, and I went through a 100-hour program with him, and immediately opened my office when I came home to Fernandina Beach, Amelia Island area, and I resigned from the state attorney's office, and it was just within a few months that 9/11 happened. My practice was booked solid, which is why I resigned from the state attorney's office. And quite ironically, my 9 o'clock appointment that day was a guy coming in with fear of flying. And so it might not be exactly what you were thinking, how it affected things, but 9/11, obviously I didn't work with that client that day. And a lot of people, things froze, really. I mean, I went from being booked solid to not as many clients for several months while we all were just in shock with what was going on. Once things got back going again, definitely fears was one of the biggest things that people came in for. And there's fears that are really obvious, like fears of flying, fear of bridges, fear of heights. But I've had people with like fear of lizards, living in Florida, like so much fear that if one was in her house, like she was not going to go in her house. I've had people that came in with fear of left turns. This one lady had a fear of left turns because it meant she had to cross that traffic. So she spent years, no joke, taking right turns and knowing whatever town she was in, how she could get to her destination by using right turns. That is interesting. Yeah. So there's some really obvious fears, and then you can go, well, there's fears. There's fears in relationships. There's fears of success. There's fears of failure. There's fears of winning. One of the PGA Tour guys I was working with, one of his appointments, he was like, I don't want to be in the top 10. And he was consistently on tour and had his card, and he hovered somewhere around 50th position, and every once in a while he got close to being top 10 of the week, but he had said to me, I don't want to be in the top 10. And I was shocked. I thought, how is this PGA Tour professional, one of the top in the world for golf, hiring me to help him be his best? But then he basically gave himself a glass ceiling, right? And I thought, how am I going to give him suggestions for his optimal self and build him up and do all the stuff that I talk about doing? And he doesn't want to be in the top 10. And so he said, I don't want to live like that. So I'm afraid that if I get in the top 10, I won't be able to go to restaurants with my family. I won't be able to go out in public without, look at Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods has to eat in the kitchen at a restaurant. He can't go anywhere without people recognizing him. So he had fears around what came with that level of success. So there's kind of hidden fears like that. But then we could take it one step further, and we can say that everything that feels like a negative emotion in your body, worry, regret, anger, frustration, everything that feels cruddy, anxiety, stress, has a fear-based thought behind it. So fear is behind everything that makes you feel cruddy. It's unhealthy. You're not in your optimal state of mind when you're living from fear. I tell people, and this is not something I came up with, I've heard it myself, but you're at a crossroads in your life and you're having to make a decision. And you can pause and meditate, or go into alpha, or do some hypnosis, whatever. Relax your conscious mind and think for a moment, not think consciously, meditate, right? And go, how would fear decide this decision? How would fear make this decision? And it would probably be the more guarded, more reserved, the more freaked out, like, heck no, I'm never doing that, right? And then you could think, well, how would love make this decision? Well, love would be like, you can do this. You're powerful, or this may work for you, or this could be exactly what you want. This is a blessing in disguise, So if you allow yourself to look, how will love decide this? How will fear decide this? Hopefully, you would go with how would love decide this a majority of the time. You wouldn't let fear hold you back. And so, again, that's a big part. All these things are part of my mental training. I teach people how to live this way. But fear, going back to 9/11 and all of that, fear was definitely very prominent and very visible, but it's also behind the scenes what's causing most of our problems.